Advertisers implemented imitations of download sites like Roblox FPS Unlocker, YouTube, VLC, or KeePass to deliver Trojans that install malicious extensions. You guys ever got told, don't go to a website, a sketchy website, don't click that sketchy link, don't, double click it, don't let it download, and don't run it? This is one of those stories. We have major malware that's being spread out through extensions, and they're being reported that they're unable to get deleted in easy ways, and there's some pretty cool tech behind it. Let's talk about it. Today, we're facing an unprecedented array of data breaches, hacking attempts, and surges in digital crime. Why is there such a widespread amount, and how little is noticed in our everyday lives? Malware, dark sites, brute forcing, zero-day script kiddies, and nation-state hackers are all on the rise. Learn more about the threats we face and gain a bit more knowledge than yesterday. Hey everyone, another episode of Exploit Brokers is coming to you now. So guys, this is Lauda with Exploit Brokers. Welcome back to another episode. If you're new here, welcome. Guys, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon because it helps the channel out and helps us reach more people. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or one of the other podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, please be sure to follow and hit us with a review. With that said, let's get into it. All right, so today, instead of an article, we actually have a write-up by Recent Labs titled New Widespread Extension Trojan Malware Campaign. This was released in August 6th by their research team, and it pretty much chronicles a new-ish, parts of it are new, parts of it are old, campaign to pretty much do what it sounds like. Malware extensions that want to either steal stuff or spam you or etc. Let's jump into the executive summary, talk about it from there. So, web browser extensions have grown from being a niche piece of software into a full sub-economy of the internet industry. Extensions are supported on most browsers, including Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome. Both offer hundreds of thousands of extensions in the Google Chrome Web Store and Microsoft Edge add-ons. With the rise in popularity of extensions has come a rise in malicious extensions built by bad actors who have pinpointed this relatively new malware attack vector. This research article intends to highlight a specific ongoing threat and the larger issue, malicious web extensions. So, for anyone who, if you've ever installed a web extension, you'll know what this article is kind of going toward, right? Whether it's two-factor authentication, some YouTube tool, an ad blocker, or anything like that, I'm pretty sure, or like the Join Honey app for discounts and affiliate links. There's different extensions, and they are all essentially add-ons or ways to extend the functionality of your browser. You can go to the Chrome Web Store or the Microsoft Edge add-ons, and this is almost like a Play Store or App Store, to give a mobile store reference, right? But specifically for your web browser. So we can continue. The Reason Labs research team has identified a new widespread polymorphic malware campaign that forcefully installs extensions on endpoints. So polymorphic malware is any malware that can kind of change itself over time, or whenever it needs to to make it kind of harder to detect or track. So the Trojan malware contains different deliverables ranging from simple adware extensions that hijack searches to more sophisticated malicious scripts that deliver local extensions to steal private data and execute various commands. The Trojan malware, existing since 2021, originates from imitations of download websites with add-ons to online games and videos. We have witnessed a very wide distribution of malware and extensions. In total, at least 300,000 users across Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge have been affected. So, again, you have something that gets used by a lot of people, extensions, and this is just another way for bad guys or bad actors to try to monetize malicious activity. In this case, the Trojan that they specifically were looking at has been around since 2021, and we know that 300,000 users have been pwned. At the time of the writing, most AV engines do not detect the installer and the extensions. Countless users across the web are complaining about an extension that they cannot get rid of, even posting complaints on the extension page on the Chrome or Edge store, stating that it is a virus they cannot get rid of. They don't know how it appeared, and it keeps returning after attempts to remove it. We alerted Google and Microsoft as soon as we became aware of the issue, and they are taking appropriate measures. So, again, because it's like an app store, whether you're talking about the Chrome App Store or the Chrome Web Store, or the Microsoft Edge add-ons, it is essentially like the app or Play Store. So you're able to go in and download stuff. Well, because you're able to go in and download stuff, they usually have a page for each application or extension in this case, where there's reviews and stuff like that. You can see how many users download it, whether it's popular, right? If something has maybe 5 downloads, 10 downloads, you might be wary. If something has 1 million downloads, you're probably more likely to trust it. But that shouldn't always be the case. You should know what you're installing and by who. So that's kind of the introduction, the summary, and kind of just the overall view of it. The attack flow is kind of the interesting part because it plays on some psychology and it has some cool and stuff we've seen before, but cool for this case. Advertisers implemented imitations of download sites like Roblox FPS Unlocker, YouTube, VLC, or KeepPass to deliver Trojans that install malicious extensions. So Trojans, again, it's a software that you believe it's one thing, but it's actually something else. And the name originates from the Trojan, right? The Trojan horse that was used to deliver a gift that was actually filled with pain. The executables downloaded from the fake websites do not even attempt to install the program the user wanted. In some newer versions, we've witnessed installations that pull the original programs from a Google storage link using API to download it. Now, I will post this article in the description below if you want to go and look at some of the more technical details and the indicators of compromise and stuff like that, where you can see a bigger list. I'm bringing this just to the forefront to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on, give a bit of a developer perspective on it, and just in general inform you. Once a user downloads the program from a lookalike website, the program registers a scheduled task using a pseudonym that follows the pattern of a PowerShell script file name, like updater_privacyblocker_pr1 or Microsoft Windows Optimizer Update Task _PR1 and NV Optimizer Task Updater _V2. It's configured to run a PowerShell script with a similar looking name, -file c:/windows /system32 /NV WinSearch Optimizer.ps1. So a PowerShell script, think about it kind of like if you've ever seen the command window or when something pops up and then disappears when installations are happening. The PowerShell script is kind of like a command prompt, but it's Windows' more enhanced version, if you will. And it's a way to talk to the computer through a command line interface or a CLI. And it's what a lot of IT professionals, developers, or anyone who needs to get a lot of the access of a computer without the UI. You know, a lot of the stuff that most users would be used to would be like the UI aspects, whether you're opening up a program or you're opening up files or the web browser and stuff like that. Those are all UI interfaces versus a CLI is pretty much a text, right? You're speaking to the computer in commands and it has lists and there's different ways to output stuff, whether it's a file or just displaying line by line on the terminal or command window. The PowerShell script downloads a payload from a remote server and executes it on the machine. It is important to note that the PowerShell script is written to the System32 folder. So the task essentially creates a scheduled task, which is saying, for my Linux users, a cron job, and for my users who may not be aware, a scheduled task is what it sounds like. You're telling the computer, hey, go run this later or at every hour or etc. So there's different ways to tell it, you know, whether it's a 24-hour task, an hourly task. It's just a way to get the computer to do something whenever you want it to. The script is very short and invokes a second stage script from the C2 command and control directly to memory. So the reason that's important, right, is whenever you have stuff written to a file, that makes it easier for reverse engineers, malware analysts, or security professionals to pull that piece of malicious software, that, you know, that malware, the Trojan, all that stuff, to be able to pull it and identify it because it's on the file system. You no longer have to try to get an artifact off the internet or try to do anything fancy. It's in a file system somewhere you can go and copy if you just remove the hard drive. Because if you remove the hard drive and you don't mount it and you don't do anything, there's ways to mount it read-only, especially like on Linux. There's some file forensic stuff you can do where you no longer open yourself up to it automatically running or infecting you or stuff like that if you do it in a careful manner. The installer is signed by Tommy Tech Ltd or Limited. Other installers signed by the same signer have been around since 2021. During the executions, a folder is created at c:/windows/NV Optimizer log, where the rest of the files are dropped. The folder name varies from time to time based on the campaign. So the reason this is significant is anything in the C windows generally that means that there's a higher level of privilege on this, right? To be in a Windows folder or in one of the primary ones means that there were some permissions that were needed to get installed. NV optimizer log. A lot of times whenever developers make applications, there's something called a log file, which is a file that tells whether it's a technician or the developer or someone who has to examine it, what's going on, right? So a log file generally has a step-by-step, depending on how the developer set up the logs, but a step-by-step account of what's going on. You know, a log may look something like program started, execution of this function started, file is downloading, percentage of file is underway, file has finished downloading, application is now exiting at this time with this status code. Things that the developer or a technician can go in, and especially stuff like errors where it's going to say, you know, fatal exception, a file is missing, right? That gives the path for the technician or the developer to be able to debug and figure out what's going on by looking at logs. It's a way to kind of understand what the application was doing at the time without having to be attached to it and debugging it actively at that time. So most stages of the installation, as well as all related domains, are now detected as malicious. This is where it becomes a bit of a bigger problem, as you have antiviruses unable to detect this malware and unable to detect the artifacts or the IOCs that it has, kind of like the IOCs being indicators of compromise. Think any artifacts that are left behind on a computer, or any changes or alterations like registries have been edited or files have been dropped or stuff like that. In this case, since none of the stuff has been detected as malicious, neither the domains nor this, the antiviruses that are out there don't know to stop stuff. It would take essentially the infection occurring, you noticing a weird extension, and even then, some of the ways that they're doing this, you won't always see a weird extension, and just weirdness happening at all. You may get pwned and your stuff gets stolen, and you may not find out for a long time. Now, the important part of the execution begins when the PowerShell script is finally executed. This script has 4 interesting functions. I'm going to kind of just summarize them for you. One of the stuff that happens is the extension steals queries. It cannot be disabled by the user even with the developer mode on, and it modifies the registry such that you get your browser is managed by organization, which means you're not able to override stuff. If any of this happens, you're probably pwned, because if you're a personal user, you are your own organization. I'm assuming that your computer wasn't given to you by somebody. Now, if it's your work laptop that has this, contact your IT guys, right? Simple. Now, newer versions of the script removed browser updates. They tamper with LNK or link files to load local extensions, and communication with the command and control or the CNC or the C2 server is pretty much used to get the next stage of execution. Quote, at the time of this writing, almost no one has recognized the relatively new C2 domain as malicious. This is the domain the PowerShell script contacts to download the second stage of the PowerShell script that then modifies the browser's assets. So, to follow again, right, you download a malicious extension which sets up a scheduled task. That scheduled task executes something which then downloads the next stage, and that next stage is what then starts executing and doing a bunch of stuff on it, on the computer. And the reason it does that is because it wants to do it in memory and not save a file to disk. Again, if you save a malware file to disk, it can get extracted at a later date, and last thing you want is for your malware to get flagged and for security researchers, malware researchers to figure out what you're doing. Now, that's from a bad guy side, right? From a malware developer or from a malware researcher side, of course, you want to be able to get your hands on an artifact and do some reverse engineering, some analysis and stuff like that. So that's kind of the gist of everything that's going on. 300,000 people have been pwned, and it's all because of a Trojan extension malware. Careful when you visit websites, careful when there's ads and all that other stuff. I don't want to necessarily say block ads, because there's a lot of people who run websites who rely on ads to make, some money to keep the website afloat. I think a lot of, small blog sites, even like my blog site, I don't believe at this moment in time when I'm recording, I have ads enabled on it. But, ads is a source of revenue for a lot of small developers. If you're not paying for it, then ads are usually a way that you do quote unquote pay for it. But as always, there's good pieces of software and there's bad pieces of software. And in this case, they're just hijacking something, which is the browser extensions, to do bad things. Guys, this has been another episode of Exploit Brokers. I hope to see you in the next one.